Hey guys, so I know I haven't been around in a while. It has not been my fault. I work with children at a preschool and children like to basically come up, sneeze in your face, use you as a human tissue. They have no personal space boundaries whatsoever. And as a result, I've had the flu 2 times in a row. But I'm better now. I'm ready to venture back into the world of movies, and I'm excited that the first movie I get to see is The Conjuring 4. This has been one of my favorite horror franchises, and I'll go into a little bit of why I love this so much and what my expectations are for the movie, because I'm just about to go to drive to the cinema to see it now. Unfortunately, I missed my advanced screening, but I'm going to go to my local cinema and go see it there. So yeah, I have some predictions, things I'd like to happen. We'll talk about that. If you don't want to see that, if you want to skip straight to the review, sorry, you can still hear in my voice I'm still a little sick, but anyway, I'll put the timestamp down below so you can skip forward if you want to. And first, can we just talk about this demon? I mean, he looks like a combination of Simple Jack from Tropic Thunder, Jack Torrance from The Shining, and Marilyn Manson. I mean, is this guy meant to actually be scary? Because I laughed the first time I saw him, but we'll see. Maybe he'll surprise me when we see more of him. And what's with this poster? You're really telling me that this is the best that a bunch of professional poster creator people could do? But if you want to hear some of my thoughts before we start the review, I think the first 2 movies are hands down some of my all-time favorite horror movies. They have suspense, heart, scares, and also great chemistry, especially the Warrens. They really bring the heart to the franchise, and I think it is genuinely scary. Like that closet clap in number 1. I know everybody talks about it, but it was just so well done. There was a focus on family and resilience in the face of adversity, and just a general feeling of them building the atmosphere in such a great way and having characters that we could actually root for. It really is the end of an era, and I'm sad to see this franchise go. Well, there's going to be a spin-off TV show, apparently. I haven't really heard anything about that for a while now, but I feel like that has a lot of potential, especially if they do like an episode per week featuring a different case. That would be really cool. It would be like a grown-up Goosebumps type thing. I don't know. I think it sounds really exciting, but I don't know. I haven't heard anything in a really long time, so I don't know if they're waiting to see how the box office does. With The Conjuring 4, horror always does really well at the box office, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to correlate into the numbers they're going to want for a TV show. But who knows what's going to happen. I don't see them stopping the Conjuring universe as a whole because they make so much money off it. There could definitely be room for a Nun 3 or something like that. Who knows, maybe we'll get like a end credit scene at the end of the movie that will tease the phase 2, because this is the end of the main timeline. Phase 1, it's sort of like the Avengers. There's so many different villains in this universe now, and Annabelle Comes Home could have been so good if they'd really lent into that, but I'll talk about that later. I'm going to do a ranking video after I've seen this movie, so look out for that. I feel like if we can have 10 million Fast and the Furious movies, we should get at least 5 main Conjuring movies, but either way, look, I'm okay with having 4, as long as they end it properly. And I really like one other thing about the first 2 movies. There is no disbelieving husband trope. I hate the disbelieving husband trope. It is so overdone. You know, we all have our horror pet peeves, like nails scratching against walls. That's another one of mine. The fact that there is no one like Mika from Paranormal Activity, who still frustrates me every time I rewatch it. That is one thing I really like about the first movie. Okay, so there's also a TV movie. I don't know how much this is going to resemble the TV movie because there are some darker aspects to that movie. I won't go into it in case they do cover that in this movie, and I don't want to give away spoilers, but I feel like there are some of those darker aspects that they are going to steer clear from in the Last Rites movie, because it's not so much out of respect for the family that this is based upon. I think it's more a case of playing it safe. I don't see them covering those topics because this is a really mainstream horror franchise and they want to get as many butts in seats as possible. And I can see the subject matter is a very sensitive one. If you know, you know. So, yeah, I don't really see them covering that. They might allude to it, but I don't think they're going to really go there. So let's talk about Michael Chavez. Oh my gosh. Okay, I never really come down this hard on directors. Like, really, I feel like this is probably my biggest pet peeve director ever because I really like this franchise. And okay, so if you go on Michael Chavez's IMDb page, before he got given a Conjuring universe movie, I can't remember exactly what the first one he directed was, but yeah, I can't remember exactly, but he had no experience with movies. He'd done a few music videos, a few shorts, but no movies. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but the guy had pretty much no experience, and it seems a pretty big thing for him to suddenly be having this huge Hollywood movie. But fair enough, give him a chance with that one movie, but then he goes and it flops, and he gets another movie. It flops, another movie. It flops, another movie, because he's had 3 movies under his belt. This is the 4th one in the franchise. So I don't know. Does James Wan absolutely adore this guy? Does he have really good blackmail material on somebody? I don't know, but James Wan directed the first 2, and you can tell the guy has a thing for evil dolls, because if you've seen Dead Silence, you know James Wan is amazing as a horror director. So I really wish he was the one to end this franchise and end it well, but it is what it is. Look, I will give credit where it's due. The Nun 2 was better than The Nun 1, but still, The Devil Made Me Do It, that was such a huge step down from what came before. So, look, I will say, based on what we've seen so far in the trailers, it does look like it's going to be better than number 3. That isn't really saying a lot, but I don't think it's going to touch the other 2 movies. I think it's going to come number 3 in the franchise for me. So in a few hours' time, we'll see if my prediction is correct. Anyway, I'm really happy that they've gone back to the original formula of haunted houses, spooky kids' toys, all of that stuff. Just stick to the formula. We don't need a courtroom drama. He did it again. Chavez did it again. So I just saw the movie. And firstly, let me say, do not go and sit in those shaky seats if you haven't been feeling well, because I thought that I could turn them off. So even though I wanted to see it on the big screen, I thought I'd go see it on the shaky seat. It's called D-Box here in Australia, cinema, because it was an earlier screening. But I couldn't turn it off, and every time there was a jump scare, I felt like I was about to be catapulted over the seat in front of me. It was that strong, and my stomach, oh gosh, just no. It didn't help the movie. Let's just say that. But I can still be fair and say this is a better movie than number 3. That isn't saying a lot, but it's basically what I thought. Better than 3, not as good as the first 2. So I can admit when I'm wrong, and I was wrong about Simple Jack Demon Guy. He's actually pretty scary, which is disappointing because we don't see a lot of him. And considering that in all the promotional 101 clips they show of the movie, like, we see so much of movies these days. We see 90% of his scenes, and I really wish they had dug more into the backstory of the ghosts. So there's 3 ghosts apparently that the mirror demon is using as a sort of like puppets, like in the second movie. There's a farmer guy, there's the old lady with the generic demon face who is so cliche. And then there's meant to be a third. Like, I didn't even have a bathroom break, which I'm proud of because it was a long movie. On that note, I did have to go at the end. Sorry, too much information here. So I didn't get to stay until the very, very end of credits. So I stayed for like till the mid-credits. If there's any end credit scenes that I missed, somebody let me know down below. I'd like to know that, with a spoiler tag, obviously, for the people that don't want to know. But anyway, so there's meant to be a third ghost. I don't know if I'm missing her or they're so unremarkable that they didn't stand out at all. But yeah, there's no backstory given. Like, there's 10 seconds of backstory, literally, given to these 3 ghosts. And considering how heavily they were promoted, like as part of this movie, it really isn't about them at all. And I get that, but still, I wanted more of the farmer guy and more of his backstory. So a lot of the movie is obviously about this big gothic mirror with these like cherubs on it. If you've seen that movie from the 90s, The Haunting, which is based on The Haunting of Hill House, and one of my Halloween guilty pleasures that I like to watch, that movie has so much like gothic cherub imagery in it. I just felt like that mirror really reminded me of that movie. And I always mix up that movie with The Haunted, which is the name of the Smell TV movie. Okay, so Ed and Lorraine, my first issue is they feel so different here, and I completely understand why. They're aging. Ed's had a heart attack. They're a little over it. You can feel it, and you don't blame them. They've done 1,000 cases in their career, and they're just at that stage where they're ready to write a book and retire. And then there's Judy. She gets involved. It's very personal to them, and I understand that. But it still feels so different to Ed and Lorraine that we've had before in this universe, because they feel less warm and compassionate and empathetic. It's late, I'm tired. You know what I'm trying to say. You know, Lorraine's an empath, and she just felt a bit colder in this movie, and I get it. It was all about her relationship with Judy, her role as a mother. It wasn't about her giving of herself to the family, but to her daughter. Like the family, as in the small family, it wasn't about them. They wanted to help them, obviously, but still, it was about Judy. I get that, but it just felt, I don't know, like a different Warrens to me. And Ed kind of even seemed a little mean at times to Judy's fiance. Like, I get it. He's doing the protective dad thing. Every good dad's gonna do that, but still, it almost seemed a little un-Ed-like at times. I will say there was some humour between him and Ed where it actually did land quite well, a few of the jokes. And then there was some humour in this movie that was completely unintentional, just because a few of the moments were so cringy. Like there was this moment where the girl starts vomiting, one of the small girls, and then later towards the end of the movie, there's a mirror scene where the three Warrens see their reflections in the mirror, and I just almost laughed out loud. It was so ridiculous. But overall, this is Judy's movie. It is 70% the Judy show, 30% the Smells, and I want it to be the other way around. It felt like the same problem with the third movie, where it was a courtroom sort of drama. Here it's a family drama with a bit of horror on the side. And the thing is, I actually really did like the part with the Smell family. I found it scary, interesting. I wanted to know more about them. So like I said, there were potential moments here to make it a really good movie, but they just lent so heavily into all of the family stuff. And it was such a slow burn, which I have to say, I do like that. I like a good slow burn, a long movie, but still, I feel like there were so many aspects of it that they should have lent into. Some of it, like I said, I didn't think they'd go into the original Smell case. I was right. They hinted at what went on, you know. If you know, you know. But they didn't fully go there because it's a very sensitive topic. And there's also one moment of animal violence. If that upsets people, don't worry. The dog is okay in the end. Nobody's going to go John Wick on this dog. He's fine. So apart from that, I also feel like with the original case, they were so focused on how the media frenzy was affecting the family. And yes, that was in this movie, but it felt very much sidelined for all the stuff about Judy and her fiance. And I would have liked if they had lent more into that, into how the neighbours sort of turn on them and disbelieve them and say they're just faking it. So when it comes to the actress playing Judy, she wasn't a bad actress, but I just didn't feel she was written in a way that made me connect with her. Annabelle Comes Home is definitely not anywhere near my favourite Conjuring universe movie, but even with that movie, I felt like it had more heart in it. I felt more towards young Judy than I do this grown-up version of Judy. Her relationship with her fiance, it was there. It wasn't bad, it wasn't good. It was just focused on way too much. So the opening scene, okay, I feel like this is a bit of a spoiler, maybe. So tune out for the next 10 seconds if you really care that much. I'm not going to go into what the details are, but it's about young Ed and young Lorraine. And I'll say the guy that played young Ed was spot on with the casting. Young Lorraine, not so much. She didn't really remind me of Lorraine. The opening scene in general, didn't feel it. It was all about trying to build this huge emotional moment with the Warrens when they were young. And it was sort of like the ending of the movie for me. With that, there was, Chavez was trying very hard to give this big emotional send-off and really tug at your heartstrings, and I just wasn't feeling it. I felt more in the first two movies. They were trying way too hard here. So visually, I like the 80s aesthetic, the soundtrack. We had all the window dressing of a Conjuring universe movie. Spooky kids' toys, all of that stuff. I liked the way this movie looked. It looks good, but it did feel a little like style over substance. It just felt hollow and generic to me. But yeah, like I said, it just feels like I wanted more of the Smurl family. And if Judy had to be a focus, they could have incorporated those two storylines better, and that would have been okay with me. So there's some fun cameos at the end. We see the Perrin family from the first movie. And then we see James Wan. Sister Irene, she was listed the actress in the IMDb page. I didn't see her in it unless I missed her. So Annabelle was in it, but she wasn't in any way relevant to the storyline. She just felt like she was there for fan service. So I will say there was one scene of her that was pretty cool. We don't see anything of Valak, just a picture in the Warrens Museum. The acting was good, no problems there. Like, Ed and Lorraine Warren, Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga are always going to be good. But Judy's actress and the guy that played her fiance, they're not noticeably bad. They're just bland. That's the word that I would say. But nothing stood out as bad acting-wise. The Smurl family, the girls were really good. I really, I keep saying, wanted to see more of them. But apart from that, it just felt like the script is where, once again, with a Michael Chavez movie, it's where it loses me. The jump scares were also really annoying to me. I have no problem with jump scares. I'm not one of those people. I just want a good one. And these feel cheap somehow. It's always just really loud noises. You see it coming a mile away. Anticlimactic is the word I would use for the third act. It was all this build up, this slow burn, going nowhere. And it was just disappointing because you see, like I said, parts of what could have been a really good movie with a competent director. So I don't know, like I said, about the end credit scene, if there's a hint for phase 2, if we are going to still get the show. So far it seems like it's probably just ended with this. I don't feel like there's anything officially going forward for now. Feel like we would have heard about it by now. Especially they'd want to capitalize on the hype of the movie. I just feel like Chavez didn't have the right to wrap up this movie, to wrap up this story. It should have been someone else. It should have been James Wan. He really needs to finish what he starts. Anyway, I would say this is worth seeing, but stream it. Don't see it at the cinema. I would give it a 6 out of 10. Look, honestly, maybe that's being harsh. Maybe it actually deserves a 7, but yeah. Maybe it's a bit of an emotional response, but still, I'm going to say 6.5. Let me know what you think down below if you've seen the movie. What's your favorite Conjuring Universe movie? Let me know, and I'll see you guys in the next video.